It'd probably be good if I edited these videos, to cut out the part where I walk in. Why waste time doing irrelevant stuff? I do take camera and lens reviews actually really seriously. I have to state outright that I'm actually not a big fan of LAOWA lenses because I've tested more than a few, but I have to be completely honest that this lens, and I wanted to review it because it's actually really small and compact. This is the 9mm f2.8 dreamer lens, as they call it. Tiny little compact lens. It is made in China. It's actually $500 retail in the US. It's 15 elements, 7 not rounded, but 7 aperture blades on the diaphragm or the aperture. It's a 13.5mm field of view equivalent relative to a full frame equivalent. It's only 7.5 ounces in weight. Comparatively, I know a lot of you are familiar with Midicon, and I own both the 85 1.2 Midicon and the 35mm f.0.95 Midicon. The actual finish on this is actually slightly superior, and I'd actually collectively say, having used the lens and tested it for the past many days, that the build quality is roughly about 10% better than a Midicon. Midicon is perfectly fine to begin with. So 49mm front and filter thread. It is made in China, just like the Midicon. I'm just using that as a basis of a comparison because I know and can prognosticate that people will want to compare it to the Midicon, which I've reviewed and several people have purchased, and they'll say, how is it compared to the Midicon build quality? A little bit better. Not much, but the Midicon is perfectly fine to begin with. The Midicon, however, does not come with a lens hood at all. At least my copies didn't, and I bought them new. It has a really nice metal lens hood. Everything is metal about this lens. It's at 7.5 ounces. It's actually incredibly compact, perfect little travel lens. I got a link below. You can take a look at a pile of images from this lens. I'd actually consider this to be the perfect little travel lens and also a perfect little small architectural landscape lens. This one's actually in a Fuji X mount. I know it's available in Canon. I know it's available in Sony, but I believe it's also available in Canon mount. Low distortion, low chroma, low vignetting even at f2.8. However, it is present and visible like you're shooting a bright sky scene. But I mean, relative to most lenses, considering its size, it's actually really nice. It's nothing anybody's going to complain about. Smooth autofocus, since this is a non-CPU contact all manual focus lens. Typical of most Chinese glass, it has a very, very slight magenta shift, and that's no big deal. All lenses, well, not all of them, but a lot of lenses do have a shift. Like most Tamron lenses have a cyan shift in them, and it's readily apparent on straight out of camera images. All metal construction, including lens hood. Realistically, if I have to actually give a comparator, and this is a 15 element lens between like this and a Midicon, which is over $500, and this is superior build quality, I first, in actually composing this review, said to myself, should I actually complain about the fact that it's $500? I mean, realistically, is this a $400 lens? And I have to tell myself relative to a Midicon, import fees, retail cost fees, and then the fees are tacked on over cost of manufacture in China. No, this lens is realistically priced. I would like it to be $400 instead of $500, but being perfectly realistic relative to similar build quality, fit and finish, and actual output of this lens, it is correctly priced. So I have to backpedal on that. I'm actually giving you my thought process and being perfectly logical rather than emotional and irrational about any and all lens reviews that I do. It's extremely compact. Actually, on this lens, out of a total of scale of 1 to 10, I give it a solid 7.5 plus for travel and build quality and compactness for indoor, architectural, landscape, and nighttime astro work, given its low chroma and how small it is, and the fact that it really is the perfect little compact travel ultra-wide angle for Fujifilm. I give it a solid 9 plus out of 10. I really do. It's actually incredibly well constructed. I love the all-metal lens that they include with it. It's like, why doesn't everybody do that? It only costs like $1 to make an all-metal lens hood. I mean, I buy metal lens hood replacements for like $5 in specific millimeter diameters. Those are screw-in, however, as opposed to bayonet mount, but I mean, it's good they actually include that. Actually, I was actually surprised because I'm realistically not a fan of LAOWA, and I've made that abundantly clear, but this lens is actually quite, I mean, I can't use the word incredible, but I mean, I can use the word astonishing. I actually can realistically call it an astonishingly good lens. Please click the link below and see a pile of images from this lens, the 9mm 2.8. I said this is a 2.8 lens. I actually tried to get this lens to flare and could not. That's not saying it's not prone to flare. Every lens, including the really, really expensive ones, are prone to flare. I actually consider, even though it's a 15-element lens, and that's the issue with all ultra-wide-angle lenses, is that they necessitatively so, including Nikon and Canon, have a ton of glass in them, all ultra-wide lenses. And but a 13.5mm field of view on this one, and considering how well it's made and how compact it is, and the fact that it has low distortion, low coma, and relatively low vignetting at 2.8, and smooth autofocus, this is an extremely nice lens. Actually, it's better than extremely nice, but like I said, I give it a solid 7.5. I mean, you know, compared to, I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lenses. I mean, I do have to realistically rate it at a 7.5. I mean, compared to, I mean, some of the lenses that I call God lenses, which are just absolutely unsurpassed, must-buy lenses, you know, which are, you know, obviously a 10. I can't rate it higher than a 7.5. I have to be completely realistic about that, but that's actually giving it an extremely high compliment, you know, relative to the other extremely expensive and extremely fine glass that costs a lot more money than this, that I both own and have used. So I do give it a really good, I don't know, call it, should I actually say extremely? I can't say extremely high recommendation. I give it actually a very high recommendation. That word would be accurate and logical, and not interjecting any emotions into what I feel one way or another about this lens relative to the entire spectrum of lenses that I consider to be absolute must-buy and just absolutely incredible, and, you know, on the spectrum of where this lens falls. I mean, I would give it a very high recommendation, but based upon the consideration that, you know, if you want, you know, you're backpacking across Europe or whatever, you know, and you're limited, and a lot of people have that issue, or they're traveling. It's like, you know, I can only bring a few lenses. It's like, well, you can only bring those few lenses, but no one's going to chirp about sticking this little lightweight puppy in their backpack at another 7.5 ounces to add an ultra-wide parameter to use with your camera. And therein, this lens is extremely awesome. So there it is. That's the LAOWA 9mm f2.8. I was actually quite astonished. And I have to give fair reviews on lenses and cameras. Otherwise, I'm just being, you know, I'm being a useless schmuck. I can't interject emotions and subjectivity into what I feel one way or the other. But there's a couple other, like the 12mm, a couple of LAOWA lenses that, you know, I was non-pulsed by or unmoved by. But this one was actually astonishingly good and pleasing, very, very pleasing actually, and I gave it a very good recommendation. 7.5 out of 10 is really very high. All metal construction. So that's it. I hope you like this review. I am not sponsored by anybody. I just want to give fair, logical, objective conclusions based upon a broad breadth of experience with lenses as far as where this lens falls and whether it's worth it or not. And I actually, at $500, it is worth it. So I guess that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I got this in a Fuji X mount. I got this lens, snagged one used, but used like new. Every lens I get used, I clean up, and I'm really good at cleaning lenses. Actually, a fit and finish on this is about 10% better than a Medicon, like the 35mm f2.8. I thought I actually touched the front element earlier today when I was messing around with it and testing, but apparently I didn't. If I did, I was going to clean the front element. There you go. LAOWA 9mm f2.8. Thank you so much for watching. And As they say in Russia, увидимся. До свидания. Aloha. Hasta luego. Vaya con Dios. Ese. See you later. Bye. Yeah, I didn't have my screensaver on today. Oh boy, I bet people are really going to miss that, aren't they? No, they're not. Bye.